initial episode of The Ignorance Project. And I really want to use this as a tool to really question the things that, one, we're ignorant about, and two, discuss topics that people aren't comfortable discussing and challenging them and having a space where we can openly learn and feel safe about it. So on my first episode, I'm really excited because I have my favorite person in the world with me.
Oh.
Sorry.
That's cool.
But I have my brother here with me. And I asked him a few months ago, I think I first brought this up to you, where I said I wanted to have a space like this to have these discussions. And I asked if we could talk about your experience with changing careers. So can you start by just kind of giving us some context around your background?
For sure. So I was raised in Alabama, and
you're really going back.
No, I'm not going to go that far back. I'm not going that far back, trust me. Yeah, and I went to this school called Oakwood University in Huntsville, Alabama, where I started off originally as actually a computer engineering major. Yeah, I was an engineering major.
I forgot about that. We were in the same calculus class, and he had to tutor me. I was a senior and he was a freshman. Sorry, it's funny to me. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I started off as an engineering major, and by the second semester of college, I actually switched over to biochemistry, which is what I eventually got my degree in. Mm-hmm. And then a few years later, I decided that I was going to leave the sciences and pursue filmmaking. And then I decided to apply to the top schools for film. And I got into the number one school, University of Southern California, where I am today.
Right. And we actually had a conversation a few weeks ago. And you were talking about all the meetings that you were in. And you sounded not stressed, but you just sounded very busy, in my opinion. And I asked you, are you happy with what you're doing now? And your face, I wish I should have screenshot that moment and so I could insert it right here. But you just look so happy.
Oh yeah, I am definitely happy with my vocation right now.
Mm-hmm.
I really believe that this is where I'm going to stay. I don't think I'm going to switch fields again. I might do a little side stuff, I've always wanted to get into beekeeping, which I'm definitely going to do.
Okay.
But besides the small little projects I want to do in life, the filmmaking is definitely going to be it for me.
Okay.
But yeah, I love all the projects I'm on, and it's always I love working with very creative people, very driven people who want to get art out into the world. And to say something with what they're doing.
Right.
And I just like being a part of that process, with very talented people. So, I really love filmmaking.
Yeah. And that's a scary leap. So what I want to use this episode of the Ignorance Project to discuss is people staying in that fear mode, because so many people kind of start a career and they feel like they started it and why would they change now? I was actually looking at some research from Gallup that said 15% of the world is unsatisfied with their jobs. 15%. Sorry, I flipped that up. Only 15% of the world is satisfied with their job. 15%. That's a very small amount. In America, that's 30%. It goes up to 30%. But that means 70% of people in America alone are very unhappy with the work that they're doing.
Yeah.
And when you look at that, there are also physical things that can impact you when you're unhappy with your work. There's a study from Forbes that says that you can, of course, suffer from mental health issues, but that can also manifest into physical issues. And people are really suffering by the age of 40 because they're doing something every day that they don't love. So the first thing that I want to ask you is, because we all know that our parents had some mild heart palpitations when you said that you don't want to do biochemistry anymore and you want to move to California and go to film school, and it's okay, all right. But there was something in you that really stuck to your dream and decided to pursue that. So what advice do you have for people that are being told that they shouldn't do something by the people that are the most important to them in life? And I'm assuming that our parents are pretty important to you in life when I say that.
Yeah, no, yes. My family, my parents are very important to me. My family in general, you, very important. I think it's really about, like, going back to what you originally said about, like, the change being a scary thing.
Right.
I think that's a stigma that has been perpetuated because what really is scary about change? Life is about change. We get older every day and something new is changing with us. And I think a lot of us are afraid of, like, change happening because we like living in our comfort zone because it's very comfortable to us.
It is.
And I'm not necessarily even, like, immune to that because there are definitely things that I just feel comfortable doing and I'm not going to try to venture outside of that. But I think it's really getting to the heart of it is, like, why are you afraid? Like, what is there to be afraid of?
Right.
So for a lot of people, it's expectations. You know, expectations that are put on you by others and usually the people whom you care about.
Right. And you know what, to just kind of follow up to that point, because when we think about it, our parents have our best interest at heart. So even though we feel like those expectations are pushed on us, it's for good reason, right?
That always.
We know that, but it's still difficult to go against that.
Yeah.
Even knowing that.
Yeah, like, you have to understand that everyone is, like, the people who care about you want to see you succeed. But their version of success might be limiting to what your true potential is. It might not be. Maybe some parents are there are definitely parents who are more free. And that I feel like that also has its cons as well as its pros.
Right,
But,
that's true.
You know, it's like, for our parents, snap, I just lost my train of thought. I have to roll it back on it.
It's okay. Because I kind of have a point to make too. Because,
Okay.
I mean, we're talking about parents, but even outside of that, I think people in general put their version of success on you. And even when you're getting advice, not even just about your career, but about your relationships, your friendships, what you should eat, even, people tend to kind of give you that advice based on what they're feeling. And that is a very dangerous thing. I've done that to people too. And kind of being mindful to take that step back and saying, okay, this is what I would do, but you're a completely different person than I am. I might love sushi and you might hate it. So why would I tell you to go to the sushi restaurant for lunch?
Yeah. Why would I give you that movie recommendation? Why would I tell you to...
I do the movie recommendation all the time.
Why did I tell you watch Shutter Island when I... Sorry, there should be no insider jokes here. I love Shutter Island, by the way.
Me too.
Yeah, but no, that's very true. Yeah, I think it's like we hold... I don't even necessarily know it's about, like, holding the people whom we love in high esteem, but really it's more about, like, we just don't like... we don't like having people think less of us or think that, like, we made the wrong choice. We don't like disappointing people.
We don't like disappointing people, right?
Yeah, so it's like whenever there's that possibility, we definitely pause. But, like, for me, it's you only have one life to live,
right?
And you don't know how long it's going to be. And why live any second, like, in regret? That's easier said than done. I regret a lot of things. But like, minimizing those regrets, that's how I try to live my life. So, like, for me, yes, I do care about what my parents think about me, and what my sister thinks about me, and what a lot of people think about me, my community thinks about me. But they are not me. And they are not living my life. And I only have this life to live. As far as, I mean, you know, I'm a Christian, and I believe, you know, in a greater hope, but like right now I want to live the best life that I know I'm capable of. So that's why I'm not going to shy away from like making the hard decisions of like changing my whole career path and moving out to California where I don't know anyone, and making my own path, because this is my life, you know?
Right. And to kind of follow up on that too, we're fortunate to have parents that actually got on board with that once they saw you making those moves to kind of change the course of your life.
Yeah, I mean, it's like they got on board and they didn't get on board. You know, it's like, well, they know if you're waiting for people to get on board with what you do, it's never gonna happen. You know, I remember, you know, my father, he made me. I have two snakes, and I remember like the first snake I got. My father made me write like a 2-page essay on like why I deserve this snake.
Right.
And you know, sure, like I wrote all these reasons as to why I should get this snake and why I can take care of it and all this. But I think then he already was of the mind that he was going to get me the snake, even if I didn't do that well on the essay. Because a couple years prior, like he was still thinking of getting me on the snake, but he wasn't on board yet with doing that. Like, sure, my words might have persuaded him somewhat, but he made up his own mind whether or not I did write the essay or not. Now, years later, when I was out of college, I did the same thing with my career. I basically made a list of pros and cons as to why I wanted to go into the sciences or why I wanted to go into film, and I basically laid all of those out, and I gave it to Dad. Like he wasn't necessarily on board. Like, even if I were to persuade him with why I wanted to go into film, it was just the choice that I was going to make. You know, just like he and my mom made decisions to move to. I mean, my dad specifically made a decision to move to America at the age of 20 and go to Oakwood University and study theology. That was his choice, whether or not his parents. I mean, his parents were on board with that, but you know, like it was his choice. It was his decision, and like. It's not about waiting for someone to get on board. It's about, yes, it's about trying to convince the people that you care about because you want them to be on board with you, but like you have to move forward on your own sometimes, you know.
And I think that's a lesson that you taught me. I was actually having this discussion with one of our younger cousins a few weeks ago, and I remember saying there are things that I didn't pursue because I felt that someone else wanted to do it, and I'm like, oh, I don't want to do it anymore because now they're saying that they want to do it. But at the end of the day, it's my life, and I have missed out on certain things in life because I made that decision based on what other people want to do or what they think. So all that to say, I admire you and I respect that about you.
And I admire you, Shireen, in many ways, but that's not what this is about.
That's not what this is about.
You're interviewing me, so I'm the star.
Okay. And I don't want this to go on forever, so just one last piece of advice that you give the people. And Juno's getting fed up too. Sorry.
One last piece of advice.
Yes.
You know, I think that even with all we've been saying, I think we've been putting a lot of blame on the people who are in our lives that we like look up to. But I think at the end of the day, it's really you are your greatest enemy. And it's always going to, like, you can put the excuses on someone else and be like, oh, well, I'm not doing it because if I did it, my parents or my church or my family or might be disappointed in me. But at the end of the day, those are all excuses, and you're going to have to convince yourself. And I think the biggest thing that is really the detractor of why people don't pursue what they're trying to do is because they're afraid of failure. And they're afraid that if they do try, they do put everything into it, that if they fail, that means that they're not enough, and they just shouldn't have done it.
Right.
And that, I believe, you can't be afraid of failure because you're going to fail. All great women and men who have achieved anything worthwhile in life
That's true.
had to go through failure. I mean, you like baking. How many iterations of things have you gone through? I mean,
A lot.
you know, like
Right.
you have to have that drive to accept and welcome failure because that is the only way that you're going to succeed at anything worthwhile. And you have to be able to like be okay with that. Be okay with being a failure sometimes. Be okay with not knowing exactly what to do or how to do it. Just by trying, you're going to find something out, you know, and it's going to put you that much, a little bit closer just to where you want to be.
So unfortunately, that's where the camera ended up cutting out. However, I did want to just say that we were wrapping up, and I'm very grateful to Kaleem, also known as August Burton, for agreeing to take part and be my first official guest for the Ignorance Project. I really wanted this to be my first episode because I do want everyone to understand that it's never too late to start over. And I do believe that one of the things that a lot of us are taught is that once you start something, you need to see it through, you need to finish it. But as we grow and we understand more, we know that sometimes our interests take a turn, and it's okay to follow wherever that leads. You might live a longer life. You might be a lot happier. You don't know until you try. Don't see failure as the end. Okay? Leaving you guys with lots of love. Thank you so much for watching, and I look forward to having more conversations like this with all of you.
So I think that's gonna be my favorite.
Sure.